Imagine standing at the edge of a river as the sun rises over a city built in the shape of a perfect circle. A city so advanced, so wealthy, so alive with ideas, that for 200 years, it was the center of the entire world. This was Baghdad. Not the Baghdad of headlines and conflict you know today, but a city that once outshone every capital on earth. Founded in the year 762, it was designed not by accident, but by ambition. A perfect circle of walls, palaces, and mosques built to be the heart of an empire that stretched from Spain to the borders of China. Here, in what became known as the House of Wisdom, scholars translated the knowledge of Greece, Persia, and India into Arabic, preserving ideas that would have otherwise vanished into the dust of history. This is the story of a city that dared to become the greatest center of knowledge, trade, and beauty the medieval world had ever seen, and how it all came crashing down in a single, catastrophic year. They called it Madinat al-Salam, the City of Peace. From above, it looked like nothing the ancient world had built before. A circular city, ringed by 3 concentric walls, with the Caliph's palace and the great mosque sitting at its exact center, like the heart of a beating clock. 4 great gates faced the 4 corners of the empire, and from each one, roads stretched out toward Damascus, toward Khorasan, toward Basra, and beyond. Merchants entering through those gates carried silk from China, spices from India, ivory from Africa, and furs from the Volga. The markets never seemed to sleep. The air was thick with the smell of saffron, roasting lamb and river water, mixed with the calls of merchants selling glassware, paper, and perfume. And above it all rose the golden dome of the palace, visible for miles, a symbol that this city was not just a capital. It was a statement to the world. But Baghdad's true power wasn't in its walls or its markets. It was in its minds. Within the House of Wisdom, scholars of every faith and background worked side by side. Muslims, Christians, and Jews, Persians, Arabs, and Greeks, translating ancient texts into Arabic, and in doing so, saving them for all of history. Here, the works of Aristotle and Ptolemy were studied and expanded. Here, a mathematician named al-Khwarizmi wrote the foundations of algebra, a word that still carries his legacy today. Physicians dissected the human body to understand disease. Astronomers built instruments to map the stars with startling precision. While much of Europe was locked in centuries of turmoil, Baghdad's scholars were calculating the circumference of the Earth, developing early chemistry, and writing medical encyclopedias that would be used in European universities for the next 700 years. This was not just a city of trade. It was becoming the mind of the medieval world. Step away from the palace, and Baghdad revealed a different rhythm. The rhythm of ordinary life. Narrow streets wound between mud brick houses, their upper floors leaning toward each other to shade the alleys below from the brutal summer sun. Public bathhouses heated by wood fires offered relief from the heat, and a place for gossip and business to mix. Bakeries filled the morning air with the smell of fresh flatbread. Water carriers moved through the crowds with goatskin bags slung over their shoulders, calling out to thirsty travelers. At night, the call to prayer echoed from minaret to minaret, rolling across the rooftops like a wave. Poets recited verses in candlelit courtyards. Storytellers spun tales that would, centuries later, be gathered into a collection the world would come to know as 1001 Nights. For all its grandeur, Baghdad was, at its core, a city full of people simply trying to live, to trade, to learn, to fall in love, to survive. And then, in the winter of 1258, it ended. A Mongol army under Hulagu Khan arrived at the gates of Baghdad, demanding surrender. The Caliph refused. What followed was one of the most devastating sieges in human history. The walls that had stood for 500 years were breached. Fires spread through the streets that had once smelled of saffron and bread. The House of Wisdom, filled with centuries of irreplaceable manuscripts, was destroyed. Legend says the Tigris River ran black with ink from the books thrown into its waters, and red with the blood of the scholars who had written them. In a matter of weeks, the greatest center of learning in the medieval world was reduced to ash and silence. The city that had once been the mind of civilization had been silenced by the sword. And yet, despite fire, siege, and centuries of turmoil that followed, the ideas born in Baghdad did not die with it. The mathematics, the medicine, the philosophy. They had already spread outward, carried along trade routes, and